Hello, I'm Matt Teale and welcome to the Military Tech Show. In this series, I'll be bringing you up to speed with all the latest technological breakthroughs transforming the future for armed forces across the world. Coming up on the show. Unsure what lies ahead, how an ingenious combination of 3D video and drone technology can offer infantry soldiers a more precise picture of the battleground. It's the mini Hoover that could save the lives of injured soldiers. We bring you the device which salvages lost blood and returns it to the casualty. Inspired by nature but made for the 21st century, the mini submarine that could keep the world's ports safer. During the recent conflict in Afghanistan, soldiers faced huge risks when entering a village or compound. They could be attacked by hidden enemies or set off improvised explosive devices. But unmanned aerial vehicles or drones could offer infantry troops enhanced intelligence and protection. As Charlotte Banks reports, an award-winning team at the University of Birmingham has been pioneering the combination of 3D video technology with drones to create a more complete and revealing picture of the battle space.
Birmingham University's Human Interface Technologies team use virtual reality, simulations and software to look forward 20 years into the future. They want to see what might be possible in 2035 and beyond. Drones are set to become a bigger part of the military world, but one thing they're on the verge of doing is generating 3D video, something the Army doesn't yet have, but that could prove very useful. This is the replica Afghan village at Thetford, which will be familiar to the thousands of troops who did their training here before deploying to Helmand. That campaign might be well in the past, but today the village is helping to develop the technology of the future. This is a standard off-the-shelf drone, which might not look like much, but combine it with some advanced software and you've got a powerful surveillance tool in your hands.
Chris is programming the drone to adopt a scanning pattern on the second part of the Afghan village. We've scanned the first part and now what he's doing is he's setting all the GPS coordinates so that the drone can take off, adopt a starting position and then do a kind of zigzag or raster scan. And then in doing that, we'll be able to take sort of snapshots.
Every time the drone takes a new snapshot, it adds a GPS tag, using its altitude and position. Using that data and some clever software, the team produce a 3D model of the area they've just scanned with the drone. The model is accurate to within a centimetre.
So what we're trying to do is use the drone to be able to build up 3D areas and demonstrate this idea of a sacrificial drone in the future, bringing something down, scanning an area very high speed with limited battery and possibly small arms fire, and then using that to build more accurate 3D representations of what's actually there.
It's technology that could one day be useful in combat.
Eventually, in real time, if it's flying over, for example, to try and find out where people are, whether there's disturbed areas on the ground, and give the troops a more situational awareness of where they are on the ground.
The more remote our armed forces get from the action, from the surveillance, from the intelligence gathering, the more or the higher quality of information they're going to demand before they can make quite significant decisions on what they're going to take out and what they're going to observe in more detail.
For the time being, this technology is in the early stages, and this is just an experiment. It takes hours to generate the 3D model today, but the troops of the future will see it in real time.
How How will technology transform future combat, and how might the military adapt? As you can imagine, these are vital questions faced by forces around the world, and some of the largest defence companies are trying to come up with the answers. One of the leading players is Northrop Grumman. In an exclusive for the Military Tech Show, Dr. Andrew Teale, the Briton who heads up the US defence giant's European operations, sets out his predictions.
There's a clear view emerging now in countries like the United States and increasingly European countries that we've reached a new moment in the history of military technologies, where our adversaries, the major powers such as Russia and China, but also increasingly some of those near-peer adversaries, now have got many of the same technologies as we have on the battlefield. So this view has given rise to thinking about what is the next generation of technologies. They're going to re-establish that difference, that military superiority on the battlefield that comes through the technologies that we use. So let's examine some of the technologies that I would expect to become very, very widely used in the battle space of the future. Intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance has been a feature of the battle space since the dawn of time. But I think we're going to enter into an age of what I call intel-centric warfare, where the gathering of intelligence is incredibly central to everything that goes on in the battlefield. That ability to know what is going on. Sometimes I describe this as eyes on, hands off. The underwater environment, for me, represents the last hiding place on the planet. Today, we can see everything that's going on the surface of the planet. You think about what you can see just on Google Earth. In the air, our ability to detect what is going on in the air is increasing faster than our ability to hide in the air. But underwater, this still remains a cloak of invisibility, where we can hide the assets that we need to use against our adversaries. So my forecast is that we're going to see a real resurgence in underwater technologies over the coming years. And we're going to be using these technologies to gather intelligence, do reconnaissance, deploy special packages, and potentially to deliver lethal force if necessary. When the United States went to war in Afghanistan, it's estimated they had about 100 unmanned air systems in their inventory. By the time we finished in Afghanistan, there were well over 10,000 deployed in that theatre. My prediction in the future is that drones will become a fundamentally intrinsic part of the battle space. What we haven't seen pervasively on the battle space today is unmanned combat air vehicles. But we've seen demonstrators like the Northrop Grumman X-47B, BAE Systems Taranis system. And those are signposting what we expect to see in the future. Combat drones able to go and gather intelligence, surveillance, acquire targets, and if necessary, strike targets, all with a huge degree of stealth, long range, and persistence. One of the really interesting challenges we have at the moment is something called the tanker tether problem. One of the features of combat aircraft is that they're not known for their fuel economy. And their range is normally only a few hundred miles without the need to refuel. And they will refuel from a large aircraft flying around in an orbit, a tanker, from which they then go and take their fuel to continue their mission. So the ability for us to use our combat aircraft relies on our ability to refuel them. And if your enemy can shoot down your tanker, that will neutralize your combat air effect. One of the ideas that's being looked at the moment is the unmanned tanker drone. So this would get around the problem of this very large aircraft being used for refueling but is much more vulnerable to missile attack. This would be a drone aircraft with a low radar signature, able to persist in the sky for very, very long periods of time. One of the things that I think has tantalized us over many years is the idea of wearable technologies. But I really think that we've got to a point in time now where these are becoming an everyday reality. So at the high end, let's look at the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter helmet. This incredible device worn by the pilot brings together 6 camera systems, brings together a targeting system, brings together missile warners and communication systems. And it brings all this together in the pilot's view, allowing the pilot, for example, to look anywhere around him or her, and to be able to see straight through the sides of the aeroplane, unencumbered by the aeroplane structure. At the low end, let's think about the sort of technologies that the soldier of the future might be using. Maybe we'll have the soldier equivalent of the F-35 pilot's helmet. It may not be something they wear on their head, it might be something presented on a tablet. But it would have that same ability to bring different sources of information together. Cyber is the revolutionary new frontier in warfare. But the fact is that a cyber attack can change its nature and its form and the method by which it's delivered. It can be changed in a matter of days, perhaps even hours. The sort of things I think we're going to see in the future are using active cyber as a means of enhancing your own defense. Being able to put cyber modules out on the network that monitor and listen and give you that early warning of attack and gather intelligence on where cyber threats may be posed to your nation. When I look at the battle space of the future and I look across the range of technologies that we're going to see in that battle space, everything from drones to ground robots to cyber, there are certain enabling technologies which I see as very common to be used across that spectrum. So for example, autonomy. We're seeing it already in our personal lives. We're seeing cars with a degree of autonomy that we've not seen before. And you can see whether it's an unmanned ground robot being sent to defuse an IED, or on the other end of the spectrum, an unmanned combat aircraft that's being sent to prosecute an attack mission on another state. Autonomy is a very, very important technology.
Well, that is it for part one, but join us after the break when we learn about the extraordinary blood salvaging device set to improve an injured soldier's chance of survival, and the two-man submarine that could be the key to deep ocean security. Hello, welcome back to the Military Tech Show, bringing you the latest developments in defence technology. Forces, medics and researchers are constantly trying to improve field treatment capability to give injured troops on the ground even more of a fighting chance. One of the biggest causes of death is severe blood loss following a traumatic injury. But now scientists at the University of Strathclyde in Scotland have developed a portable blood salvaging device. Deployable in the field, the machine can return blood loss back to the casualty. And as we found out, it could improve the chances of survival for severely wounded soldiers.
One of the biggest challenges faced by injured military personnel in the field is hemorrhage, and it's very difficult to transport significant volumes of blood into the battlefield. We have considerable experience in developing a technique called autotransfusion for the clinical field, that's the civilian clinical field. And through that development, we developed the Hemocep system. So it occurred to us that it would be valuable to develop a military derivative of that. So we determined to design a technology that was manually powered, that was light, portable, and simple to use.
Well, this is our field deployable portable autotransfusion kit. It's quite a small package, weighs about 1.5 kilos. We take a look inside here. We've got the main drive mechanism, which is a dual-headed hand-cranked pump. We've got a low-level anticoagulant, which stops the blood from clotting within the tubes. And we've got a blood collection bag, which stores the blood that's been collected from the wound site.
The centre of the whole technology is this. It's a double-headed roller pump system with a single crank, so that both pumps are driven from a single shaft. But we can activate the second pump independently, so we can decide when that's going to run and when it's not going to run. So the top pump is a high volume pump that provides a vacuum. So it sucks through this line. So we have a conventional suction wand here that we would put into the wound, and we would suck that blood back through this pump and into a holding reservoir, this blood collection reservoir. When we have sufficient volume in that reservoir, we will activate the pump on the bottom simply by twisting the case, continue to crank the single shaft, and the blood will be transferred from here directly back into the patient. We would hope in the long term that it would have a considerable impact on the number of injured military personnel who succumb to hemorrhage. And we know that's a significant number. And we would hope that deploying this new technology, the simple autotransfusion technology, will have a very positive impact on that number of casualties.
Next, a transport at the cutting edge of patrol vehicle technology that provides unprecedented levels of blast protection for its size and weight. It's been specifically designed and built in Britain and will be a mainstay in the Army for years to come. So what is the Foxhound? Killer whales, orcas, they're among the most feared animals in the world, but also the most impressive. If you wanted inspiration for a submersible, they're not a bad place to start, as an American company have been demonstrating. John Joe, tell me more about the Orcasub.
Okay, so the Orcasub takes advantage of a unique hull design. You can't tell, but underneath this fiberglass body are two individual pilot-shaped pressure hulls. They're almost shaped like shoes. They're only as big as they need to be to keep each pilot perfectly comfortable and contain the electronic equipment that he needs to do his job. So by having this small, very efficient cockpit design, it means we don't need to have an enormous amount of weight to make this thing, make it sink. And by having it shaped like a torpedo, it means that we don't need an enormous amount of power to make it go fast and be efficient.
Okay, so give me some technical specifications. Give me some figures.
All right, so each pilot has about 80 hours of life support, which is much longer than you want to be seated in this submarine, but it's helpful if you ever get into trouble and you need time to fix that trouble. 80 hours is a lot of time to solve any problem that you might have. It has 22 kilowatt hours of power through lithium-ion batteries. So this allows it to have a range over 10, 20, 30 miles, very unique for a small submersible.
Applications, what can it be used for?
For reconnaissance, for surveillance, security, port security, and it has the ability to do all these things in a way that doesn't advertise the fact that you're doing it. So sometimes, if you're interested in doing ship hull inspections, for example, with an ROV, that requires you to have a surface vessel nearby and somebody gazing into a screen, moving an ROV around, and everybody knows that you're doing it. By contrast, we can do that clandestinely, go underneath the ship hull. We have eyes on the prize. If anything is there that's not supposed to be there, we can back up, check it out, shoot more video, beam it with sonar, and then go away without anybody knowing that we found something that we're interested in.
You mentioned it earlier, but tell me more about this fantastic sleek shape. Why is that so important?
Well, we all know that sharks are fast and torpedoes are fast. It's because of their shape. They're long, and this allows water to flow across. And with a very little input, you can maintain that sort of speed very efficiently. The least efficient thing to move through the water is a giant sphere, which unfortunately is what most small submersibles look like. So they're these spheres that have thrusters pointed in all directions to make them go up and down. And they don't have much range because it actually requires a lot of power. And if there's anything like a current running, well then you're even more out of luck. But this can head into a 3-knot current, no problem. And you're basically using your main thrusters to power, and you're using these flight surfaces to bank and turn, which is super efficient. You don't have to have thrusters counteracting you or pushing you aside. So this is what gives it the super range and the super speed. I guess another thing that most people want to know is how deep will it go? We have 3 models. The shallowest is good for 2,000 feet. We have a mid-range model that's good for 3,000 feet, and a super deep model for 6,000 feet. So quite a lot of depth for a small sub.
And at those kind of depths, what are you using this for? What can you do?
Well, you can do a lot of science, you can do exploring, but one of the most important things from a defense point of view is maintenance, for example, of SOSUS lines, or you want to make sure that your communication cables aren't being hacked by somebody, pipeline security. All kinds of national infrastructure exists at depth going across the Atlantic, and it's important to maintain them and make sure nobody is up to something they shouldn't be.
Obviously it has very serious and important applications and implications, but it also looks like it might be quite a lot of fun. How well trained do you have to be to get in it and have a go?
Well, the joke we have is that I can train you to fly this badly in about 20 minutes.
And how long would it take you to train me to fly it well?
Well, that depends on you. We've found that in training pilots, one of the common factors for one reason or another is if you're a motorcyclist, you pick up this really, really quickly, because something about learning to turn, look, lean is just generic to understanding how to fly this well. But basically, if you can play a video game,
I can do that.
Then you can get this really easily.
Okay, and last question, how much would this set me back?
So this model, this is a copy of our 2,000 foot depth model. We can put together with you, all included with sonar and communications and everything you could possibly need for under 3 million US.
Okay, we might have to shave off some extras, but it doesn't sound too bad. John Joe, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Matt.
And that's it from us for now. Thanks for watching the Military Tech Show. Until next time, bye-bye.